Hey guys, Michal Hutko here and welcome to another video of our Jupyter tutorial. In this video we're gonna start to talk about Python virtual environments. Now why and what are virtual environments? So virtual environment is a functionality of Python to create a separate environment for you to develop. Now what are the use cases for these virtual environments? So imagine you have your code, which is using a lot of different third-party libraries, and you have many projects, and each of your projects is using different third-party libraries. Sometimes it's even possible that one of your project is using one version of the library and another project is using another version of library. And everything you need to run locally in your computer, in your machine. Now, how will you accomplish this? In the previous videos I showed you how you can install the third-party library using pip Python package manager, which allows you to specify the version which you want. But having multiple projects and just one running environment in Python ends up with you reinstalling the library for each of your project when you are working. And to make your life easier, Python gives you the opportunity to create a virtual environment. Now, virtual environment has its own libraries and is using the same Python interpreter of your computer. Now, the best thing to understand the virtual environment is with examples. So let's dive right back into the terminal. So we are now in the terminal, and as you can see, I'm using, so if you run which Python 3, I'm using the normal Python, standard Python interpreter from the Python, and I'm using the Homebrews Python 3. If you don't know how to install the Python, just check out the previous course, so Python for beginners, for absolute beginners, part 1, Road to Machine Learning, where I explain how to install this Python 3. Okay, so right now I'm using Python 3, and now I'm in the folder which is called Jupyter, which will be specifically dedicated for this course. You can find all the examples from this course at the GitHub linked in the description below. So how you can create a virtual environment? So before, in order to create a virtual environment, you need to install the module, and then create a virtual environment. But now the Python 3 has a built-in functionality which allows you to create the virtual environment straightforward with just one command. So, well, and before we move on, so we will talk about this Jupyter folder as my project. So this is my working directory. Every time you will create a new project, create a new folder and create a virtual environment in this folder. It's a good practice. And also a standard is to create a folder named .env. So let's create a folder mkdir.env. Feel free to use Finder and create it manually or different, a file explorer for the Windows. So just we need to create a folder. So now I have the folder. I misspelled the mkdir. So if you look into the Finder, into the Jupyter, there is the .env. There are a couple of other files which I will explain later, but .env is important. Now is it empty? So now I'm gonna create a virtual environment with Python 3 mvenv, and the name of and the location and the name of the virtual environment will be .env / and Jupyter. Now what is this m? M allows you to run a script, a Python script or a Python module directly from the command line. So in this case, we are running script venv directly from the command line. So we don't need to run Python 3, then import and stuff like this, blah, 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 yes? So venv is a built-in function which creates a virtual environment in the desired location, which is specified as the argument. So this is the argument of the function, okay? So when I press enter, it will just take a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes to create a virtual environment. So it was pretty fast, right? And now if you look back into the Finder and if you look into the environment, the Jupyter environment, virtual environment has been created for you. And everything inside there is related to this virtual environment. We can check it out from the terminal. So let's go to the env and let's go to the Jupyter. And here, let's list it. So as you can see, there are a couple of things. There are some scripts in the bin and other files. So in order to activate this virtual environment, go outside of it. I will show you how to activate it from the Jupyter folder. So from the root folder, now I reside in the Jupyter. And now if you want to activate the virtual environment, so you want to go get inside and use the libraries of the virtual environment, you need to run source env Jupyter bin activate. Yeah, I will link also the command for Windows up here, which is which basically is doing the same thing, but they are using different syntax for the Windows, but basically the same things is happening in the Windows as in the Mac. So now if you see your terminal in case of Mac OS or your command prompt in case of the Windows is showing you that you are using Jupyter virtual environment right now. Okay, yes. So if you again run the same Python 3, which Python 3, you can see that this time the Python is in the user Michal Hucko documents courses Jupyter and Jupyter bin Python, right? So as you can see, the interpreter changed. Before it was just here, user local bin Python, so the homebrews Python, and now it's the virtual environments Python. Now everything what you will install inside here will stay inside this virtual environment. I will show you. So let's see. So what now I will list the libraries which are in the virtual environment. Pip list. And as you can see, there are just the built-in libraries which came with the pip. So just the pip and setup tools and all the built-in libraries, right? So right now we need to install something. And because this course is about the Jupyter, we're gonna install the Jupyter Lab. Okay, so how to install a Jupyter Lab? So Jupyter Lab is a library, right? And when we want to install a library or a module or a package, yes, sometimes I will use the term module, sometimes package library, but basically I'm referring to the same thing, and the right way to call it in Python is module. Okay, so let's install a Python module with a pip. So pip install, and the name of the module is Jupyter Lab. Now, there is a very nice website, jupyter.org, which can provide you some information about what is Jupyter, what is this project. And basically Jupyter provides you a couple of tools for you which are best suited for data scientists. So for the guys who are working with data, with prediction models, with machine learning, yes, with stuff like this. I'm working with it daily. I highly recommend, if you are going to be working with some machine learning stuff, install the Jupyter. It's very, very simple and very easy to use. So as you can see, there is a Jupyter Lab, which I prefer. Then there is something which is called Jupyter Notebook. And then there are a couple of other tools. For example, Jupyter Hub, which is a containerized version for organizing multiple Jupyters in the server. So for example, each of your colleagues can have its own Jupyter. Yes, right now it can be a little confusing and you maybe don't understand each connection, but just give it a time, go through the course and you will understand it better lately. So we want to install the Jupyter Lab. So if you go to install Jupyter Lab, there you will see there are a couple of ways how to install it. So as I mentioned in the previous videos, there are a couple of Python package management tools and pip is just one of them. Another alternative is Conda. I don't recommend using Conda, but feel free to use it if you want. In this course and through all of my rest of my courses, I will use only the pip. So right now I want to install the pip Jupyter Lab with the command, as you can see, pip install Jupyter Lab. You can copy paste it from here or basically just rewrite it there. I will copy paste it and press enter. And now you will see that Python will tell you that it's loading a couple of dependencies, yes? So it's downloading the dependencies. In my case, I have already installed the Jupyter Lab in another virtual environment. And now the Python is so smart that he knows that in this computer there is another virtual environment with all these packages. So I don't need to download all these packages, yes? So it's just referencing to the existing library in some of the virtual environments. And now it is just linking all the necessary dependencies. So right now you saw I just run pip install Jupyter Lab, right? But if you look now to pip list, you will see that there are a lot of other packages, right? So and now you're like, man, Michal, what are all these packages? I'm confused. I don't like the names. What Jedi, Jinja? Well, it sounds crazy, right? You don't need to worry. The thing you need to worry about right now is that you install the Jupyter Lab. And because Jupyter Lab is a big project, yes, it's a big thing, a big library, big module. It has some submodules which needs to be installed in your computer. If you are doing it on your own, it maybe takes some time to download all the stuff. Depends on your network, yes, and on your computer, but it should be under half an hour, yes, it will be installed, and you can see all the other things here. But if you go there, there is something which is called Jupyter Lab, and you can see that we are using the version 2.1.5. Pretty easy. Now, why we are using virtual environment? So as you can see, I'm still in the virtual environment, and let's leave the virtual environment. In order to leave a virtual environment, you need to write the deactivate command, deactivate. And now I'm outside, no Jupyter next to my command prompt, right? The same command is for the Windows. So when I'm outside and I will go to pip3 in this case, list, notice the difference. There are no the modules which I installed previously in the virtual environment. Yes, so this is the global Python. Why? Because when I run the which Python, user/bin/python, right? Or which Python 3, user/bin. So this is the global Python with only these packages. I didn't disturb these packages. I only installed the packages to the virtual environment. This is pretty safe. If you mess something up, you can just delete the virtual environment. And that's a good topic. How do you delete the virtual environment? So as I mentioned, there is a folder, env, and inside there is the Jupyter virtual environment. In order to delete the virtual environment, you just click on it and press delete. Nothing else. So in case of macOS, it's command backspace. In case of Windows, it's shift delete, yes. It will delete absolutely the virtual environment from your machine, and you don't need to worry. Everything what you messed up in the virtual environment will vanish, will disappear, yes. Okay, so let's go back to the Jupyter, to the virtual environment which I created. Source. Yeah, so I'm back. Yes, you can see the Jupyter is there. Now, in order to run a Jupyter for your very first time, the only thing you need to do is to put Jupyter lab in your command line. This will take some time, about few seconds, and it will create a Jupyter lab server which will serve to your web browser. Now, as you can see, the Jupyter lab is a simple, straightforward EDA. So it's an alternative, let's say, to Visual Studio Code, but not the same thing, okay? Yes, which is running in your web browser, right? In the next video, we will cover some basics of the Jupyter lab. The only thing which I want to mention in this video more is that we created a virtual environment outside of the global Python with all necessary modules which are needed for the Jupyter lab, right? And now, those of you who are, curious enough can ask me a question. Well, Michal, but what if I'm using Visual Studio Code and there in the Python extension, I'm specifying the interpreter to be used? How can I specify the virtual environment interpreter? And this is a very good question. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code. As you can see, I'm in the Jupyter folder, right? And there is the env and there are all this other stuff. So let's say you create the hello world thing, right? And you want to use the packages and you want to have these autocompletes of the Visual Studio Code based on the libraries which are installed in your Python, yes? So the Visual Studio Code knows what interpreter you are using, and it's giving you these auto hints based on the libraries which are installed in your given environment. Now, because we created the virtual environment, the libraries are different than in the global, yes? So in order for your Visual Studio Code to use the virtual environments interpreter instead of the global interpreter, Python interpreter, is to create this .vs Code folder. Yes, this is a folder, and inside create a settings.json file. Yes, and only thing which you need to specify in the settings.json is this Python path, and here provide a path to the virtual environment. And because it is relative to a folder where you reside, you just need to specify it like this, that end.jupyter/python/bin/python, right? After finishing this dictionary here in the JSON, run Command P or Control P in case of Windows, this less sign, and reload window. Now this will apply the changes you did. And when you go to a hello world or to any Python file, yes, because the Python file is using this virtual environment, you go down here and click here. As you can see, it's automatically using the Jupyter virtual environment. VENV stands for virtual environment. And if you click here, you can change it back to the standard Python interpreter or to your virtual environment. So as you can see, even Visual Studio Code is supporting this virtual environment, and please try to get used to it. Yes, when you will be working on projects with a lot of dependencies, with a lot of modules, it's good practice to use the virtual environment. Okay guys, this was a video where I showed you some basics of virtual environment. It could be quite complex, I understand. Just give it the time to absorb the information, and I hope I see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much.